Hey everybody, what's up? We are back with another solo episode here. It's just going to be me today, but I want to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. She just released what was, condensed here, the best video I can find, and again, a little condensed, about 10 minutes, 10 and a half minutes of Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, framing the entire Russia collusion hoax for us, laying it all out, telling us who's behind it, who's the criminals, and who, in her words, committed treason. And in her mind, it goes all the way up to Barack Obama. Now, there are a lot of names that she names. There are people that she claims are going to go to prison. We're going to see them in handcuffs, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. The government posted a AI video of Obama being led away in handcuffs. So before I show you this video, I just want a quick disclaimer here. I am skeptical anybody gets held accountable for the Russia collusion hoax. Okay. For you guys that can remember all the way back to 2016, seems like a lifetime ago, you'll remember that the CIA, the FBI, the whole deep state framed Donald Trump for colluding with Russia to rig the 2016 election. All of it was obviously a hoax. It bogged President Trump's agenda down for nearly 3 years, robbed him of a big chunk of his presidency. A lot of people viewed him as illegitimate, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. But now, apparently, we're going to be getting some arrests here. And now it's time for my second disclaimer. Because, as you guys remember, the last episode, all about the Epstein list. This whole Russia hoax uncovering, quote unquote, is all a distraction. It may be a distraction that something good comes out of it. I hope it does. I'm skeptical. Again, I don't think anyone's actually going to get arrested. I would give somebody 100-1 odds we never see Obama in handcuffs. But maybe something good comes out of it. But I don't want you guys to get distracted here. Keep in mind what the administration wants is for you to forget about the Epstein list and to focus on this instead. We can do both. I hope John Brennan goes to prison. I hope Obama goes to prison. I think he did commit sedition. But we can't forget about the Epstein list because this Russia hoax shit, we know where it came from. We know it came from the Clinton campaign. We know it came from Obama and the FBI and the CIA. But that's all just the kind of inner machinations of the government kind of colluding to get the leader they want. The Epstein scandal goes way deeper than just the government. There are people that are implicated from the Epstein client list through all parts of our economy, religious leaders, business leaders, as well as government leaders. So the Epstein scandal is so much more important because we're talking like potentially foreign intelligence agencies raping little girls in order to get blackmail on American leaders of all segments of our economy. That is so beyond the pale and so unacceptable, would probably lead to people getting killed if it was to be uncovered. It really would show us what the power structure of our country is really like, pulling the curtain aside and seeing who was really running things. That's what happens if the Epstein list comes out. The Epstein scandal all falls apart. This Russia stuff, we already know who's behind it. We already know they're guilty. It's just, as much as we want to see justice and it's red meat, this is not nearly as important as the Epstein stuff. So with that in mind, because there haven't been a lot of Epstein, there haven't been a lot of updates in the story in the last week, we're going to take the bait here and we're going to go through the Russia hoax stuff again. We're going to go through the collusion story here with Tulsi Gabbard. We're going to talk about it. Hopefully these people go to prison, but don't think for a second we've lost the Epstein story, because we haven't. We're going to talk about it next week, and we're going to talk about the week after that too. So with all that in mind, all those disclaimers, let's talk to Tulsi Gabbard here.
To State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
So we're going to stop it right here for a second. Again, this is a long video, and I do want to get through it. So it's going to be longer bouts of video than you guys are probably used to. Forgive me for that. I want you guys to hear it from Tulsi Gabbard. But again, if you guys remember, in the 2016 election, as we were getting close to Election Day, Hillary Clinton fell a couple times. She kind of looked dazed in public, just kind of moving from buildings or vehicles. That's what they're talking about here. When they're talking about her being on tranquilizers, this is it.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence
if you guys
Committee oversight report,
really what she's talking about there, what she's saying is that all the way through December after the election, again, the election is the first week in November, 2016, all the way through December, the intelligence agencies said Russia did not interfere in our election. That was clear. But then, middle of December, all of a sudden, they're directed by the president to look into it again, to change their findings. Because now, what the Democratic Party has started to realize is that this hoax that they were planning on playing on Trump, the insurance agents, the insurance policy Peter Strzok had over at the FBI, that it was time to implement it. That they weren't going to just say Trump was soft on Russia during the campaign, but they were going to use it to undermine his presidency and declare him illegitimate. That's what Tulsi Gabbard is saying here, that this came directly from Obama and the intelligence agencies knew otherwise.
that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president. President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote-unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true.
I mean, it's mind-boggling that the deep state, okay, permanent government, our intel agencies, the most powerful part of our government, tried to undermine the president after he'd been elected. So they do the best they can to make sure he can't get elected, okay? President Trump wins anyways, okay? They lose. And so instead of just stepping back and going, you know what? He's our boss now. It is what it is. They decide to completely undermine him. And if you think about it, just how demented this all is, remember, these are the people that have been screaming about democracy for years. These same people like James Clapper and John Brennan, James Comey, they're the first ones to get on the internet and go, oh, Donald Trump's attacking our democracy, when they literally tried to overturn, okay, the duly elected president's actions. They tried to undermine everything he did. It's just the hypocrisy and shamelessness of these people is amazing. Tens of millions of people voted for Trump, and they're so narcissistic. They think that they know better and that it's their prerogative to destroy his ability to govern. That's what I'm talking about when I say these people are guilty of sedition. People that do that to democracy, they have no value for our society, no value for our norms, our traditions, our government, nothing. No respect for the people that live here. Most other countries, you do that to democracy, they put you against a wall and shoot you. Okay? They're lucky in America we don't do that. Because that's the fate they would have found themselves facing in just about any other country in history after doing shit like this. It's insane.
With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, "The director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, 'Yes, but doesn't it ring true?'" Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, "There is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election." This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, "I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome."
Fuck Clapper, dude. I mean, you can't seriously tell me that you think Russia seriously influenced the election outcome in 2016. There is no evidence for that. He completely made it up. Complete bullshit. God damn.
This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. That leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump. I'm going to go.
So that's the end of that right there. But just for some extra background for you guys that may not remember, and a lot of this information came out piecemeal, so you'd be forgiven for not keeping up with it when it was all going down. Andrew McCabe, I believe it was the deputy director of the FBI under James Comey in 2016, or in 2017. When Donald Trump fired James Comey, McCabe went back and met with the other intel agency heads, and they, number one, considered invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump for firing a corrupt FBI director, one of the worst FBI directors we've ever had. It's a completely just terrible. I don't even want to get into all the reasons to hate James Comey, but there's a lot of them. But Donald Trump fires him, completely his prerogative. Again, Donald Trump, one of two people in the entire executive branch that's actually elected. Okay. Fires James Comey. And Andrew McCabe and these other bureaucrats decide that they want to invoke the 25th Amendment because the point is to remove Donald Trump, stop him from being president. That's what this is all about. The Russia hoax, everything. All the steps the intel agencies have taken against Donald Trump from 2016 all the way till now have been to stop him from being president. Whether that's the Russia hoax, whether that's the Biden laptop, whether that's allowing him to be shot in the head, everything the intel agencies have done have tried to stop him from being president. Have tried, and by extension, they've tried to stop the will of the people, overturn our democracy. Okay, the real threats to democracy, the intel agencies, okay, have tried to thwart our votes over and over and over again. And this was the beginning when they decided they wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment because they didn't like Donald Trump. They didn't like the way the American people voted because they didn't want Hillary Clinton either. It was outrageous. And so then they settled, okay, on a special prosecutor. If you'll remember, Jeff Sessions had recused himself over at the Department of Justice, and so Robert Mueller ends up getting appointed. And we have this multi-year hoax where he and a bunch of Democrats go on a fishing expedition into Donald Trump's life and come up with nothing. But they drag him through the mud for years. He and his administration drag him through the mud years and years, bogging down his presidency. And when they came up with nothing, the Democrats impeached him anyways. Because the entire point was to stop him from governing. Because they don't give a shit about how you and I vote. They don't give a shit about the people of America. They're in it for them. They're in it for their own power. They're in it for the corrupt deep state. Okay, permanent government. That's who they are loyal to. They're sick. And again, most other countries, people doing that, put against a wall, shot for treason. That's the punishment. And again, they're lucky we don't operate that way in the United States. It's so beyond the pale. It just makes me angry sitting here even talking about it, just remembering how these people have no respect for you or I. They hate us. They live in Washington, D.C. They look down upon us. And they're just the absolute worst. And we could go into, how they violate our freedoms, the NSA, Edward Snowden. We could get into it all. And we've covered it all on this show before. And we'll probably cover it again in the future. But just remember, you don't hate them enough. No matter how much you hate them, they hate you more. And they have the means to exercise that hate against you. Hopefully we get more of this from Tulsi, and she lays out more. Hopefully we get people going to prison for the rest of their life because they deserve it. Every one of them. Clapper lying to Congress, John Brennan, disgusting people. Okay. Don't ever let somebody tell you we need to defend them, that they're patriots that serve their countries. They hate this country. They love the power the country gives them, but they hate the country. They hate the half of it that voted for Donald Trump for sure. And you can't love America if you hate half the people. Sorry, you just can't. To think, and then what a joke it is even to look at it in hindsight now. They wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment, right, against Donald Trump, a completely sane person. 25th Amendment is meant for when the president is incapacitated, okay? Kind of like how Joe Biden was for years and years, that people like John Brennan were still on cable news defending him. Oh, he's sharp as a tack. He's the greatest president we've had in decades, blah, 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 blah. They lie through their teeth because they know the intel agencies were actually running things, at least on their side, during the Biden administration. Because we had no commander-in-chief. For the first time in several hundred years, we had no president. It was... I don't even know how to really describe here the anger that this gets at me. I'm going to see if there's any other bits to her. A little speech here. CNN cut it off. I did know that. They did not want to let the world hear how Obama committed, in her words, treason. I think that's a misuse of the word treason. I think what he really committed was sedition. Treason is more about working with your enemies to undermine the United States. Be like if the CIA was working with Russia to undermine our elections. That's not really what happened. They were working. It was Americans working against Americans. That's really sedition, I think, is the better word for it. But nonetheless, really serious crime. People have been put to death for less. I'm not seeing anything else of Tulsi Gabbard right now. Nothing that looks interesting, but of course CNN cuts away from it and doesn't want you to hear about how Obama was behind it all. And I think it's because John Brennan too, at least used to be a contributor on CNN. Andrew McCabe, a lot of these, corrupt bureaucrats, once they get fired and they're kicked out of the government, they end up going to work for places like CNN because of course they could. They need to milk our system for every last penny it has. They'd stolen enough from the government and the taxpayers directly, so now they're going to be on the teat of cable news, which will be completely gone soon. Can't happen soon enough. But again, you can get into this. It makes me really angry. It should make you really angry how much these bureaucrats hate you and the actions they took against you and I. But man, you just can't hate them enough. And again, I'm going to harp on it back from the beginning. This isn't going to make us forget about Epstein. Sorry. I know you want it to, but it's not. So I know this was a short one. Just wanted to kind of break down that video with you guys. There's been a lot going on this week, but we are going to come back to you guys next week with a longer video. Thanks for coming in.